Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are so excited for today's episode because we are going to talk all about routine and habits, which is super exciting. I come from a background of business and leadership, and all the mentors that I had learned from really, honed in on our habits. Whenever we would be at certain meetings and learning and growing in our leadership, our habits truly define everything for us. And so often we resort to our bad habits, our toxic habits, because they're easier to fall into, while good habits are harder to get in the groove of. But they also can be easy to break, whereas bad habits are hard to break and bad habits are easy to start. So we have to really go against the grain. And to me, it really just points back to the true walk of Christianity, the true walk of Jesus. It's always the harder route. It always is, seemingly, because our human nature is the fall. Our human nature is the sin. And so it's always going to be harder for us to go against the grain and choose the habits that are good for our souls, that are good for our spirits, and that are truly going to nurture our walk with Jesus. And so when you think about your routine, it's super important to consider what is the first few things that you do when you wake up, because that in itself can really define the rest of your day. What you do when you first wake up. Is it you kind of wake up slowly? First of all, do you hit your alarm a million times? Because I feel like that in itself is a habit that can really just cause a lag to your morning whenever you're just hitting the alarm, hitting the alarm, hitting the alarm, not getting up when the alarm goes off. And so then you roll over, you grab your phone, you start scrolling through Facebook, start scrolling through Instagram, responding to messages, looking at your 1,000+ email list, and you're just like, what the heck? I have so much to do. And when you start your morning like that, you are setting yourself up for a not so great day, because your capacity is slim and you're going to quickly be affected by the circumstances in your day that you face. So when we carve out the morning to get up, to spend time with Jesus, immediately get into some prayer with him, reading your Bible or other books along with that, just really allowing that quiet time to journal with him and be quiet, and then possibly move your body a bit. I know that working out can be a great thing in the morning for people. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea in the morning. Some prefer in the evening, but if we can get moving, it helps boost our energy for the day. And some good nourishing foods, of course. I know this is right up my alley. I'm all about alignment over here. So I'm like, let's talk about all the healthy stuff for us. But essentially, our time with Jesus is so important in our routine, in our habit. And if we're not making it a habit to put him in our routine first thing, we're not going to really see him throughout the rest of our day. So it's imperative that we put him in our schedule, because what we don't put in our schedule, we won't see in our schedule. We won't see in our life. So we have to be intentional about creating our routine, because if we don't create our routine, the world will create it for us and it will be chaotic. So,
yeah, I know. It's funny because I always think there's been days where, and maybe this is for the listeners too, where you're like, where are you, God? Where are you? And today, as you were talking, like that same question came to my head, but God was like, exactly, where'd you put me?
mm-hmm.
Where do we put him in our day? And then wonder, where are you? Well, it's like I was right here this morning when you woke up, but you walked right by me. I was sitting next to you in the car when you drove to work. You didn't even look at me. But yet we're so quick to call out and be like, where are you, God? Everything's falling apart. And he's like, I've been here this whole time. But why do we wait until chaos? Then all of a sudden, now we want to be in a relationship with him. Now all of a sudden, don't want to be that person, because I don't. One of those things I don't like is that person only calls you when they want something.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's how we can treat God sometimes, or maybe all the time. I know I did that a long time ago. He used to just be that person when it was falling apart. Where are you? And he's like, I've been here this entire time. So the thing about routine is not just about setting the stage correctly, but it's also about relationship with God. Because who better to know your day and where you need to be going and to forewarn you when junk is coming your direction. I think that is one of the things Taylor and I talk a lot about our dreams and things that we're seeing or hearing. But if we're in that already in that alignment, you guys need alignment coaching. That's Taylor. But when we get into alignment with God, like everything just falls in line. That's why it's alignment. So when we go to Him first and give Him our day, give Him our best right off the bat, everything's going to start to shift and it's going to change and it's going to turn into where we're not seeing so much chaos all of a sudden. And it's also the same. Sometimes our routines, our habits might be listening to the wrong kind of music. And just recently, Taylor was telling me about someone. I'm not going to bring all that up, but she was like, "This person, Satan, there's a Satan person," and I'm like, "Oh." And I used to listen to her music, and I've noticed since I cut it out, it honestly has. There's been a shift. So that extra little door was closed because I'm not listening to that music anymore that I used to listen to all of the time. So I never really thought about it. We have to start paying attention to what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yeah, maybe that sounds got a really good beat and everything, but what are they saying? What are they saying in the song?
Mm.
What's the general feeling of it? Because if we want to be able to feel where God is and where He isn't, we need to know what He feels like. Otherwise, we're not going to know. I could go on and on about that. Maybe that's a whole nother episode of feeling Him.
Yeah.
But it is key. Like He is key to everything. And if we want Him to be there when chaos hits, He has to be there when we're in joy and when we're at peace, because He is our joy and our peace. And if we want to be able to walk on water with Jesus, we've got to see Him out on the water. They never would have considered walking on the water if Jesus wasn't walking on the water.
Mm. I really think about it, and I'm not one that actually is super supportive of like the bodybuilding competitions, but I'm just going to use it for this example for the sense of a training purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say, like, you have this dream to be a bodybuilder and to be on this stage and have this certain physique and look this certain way, but yet you eat fast food, you don't work out, like, you're not training for that competition one day and you expect to be at that level for that competition, but yet you're not putting that into your you're not making a habit in your routine to train for that day. And so that's kind of what we do with Jesus. We expect all these blessings, we expect to see his provision in our life, like, oh yes, this is going to all work out, like he has a hope, he has a future, which is great. It's true, he does have promises for us, but are we taking advantage of his word and not allowing him to come into our space each and every day? We can't expect to be in this place spiritually where we can command demons to go, we can heal, we can, we're anointed and we're really working all our gifts if we're not allowing Jesus into our space as a habit and in the quiet place as a habit first. We can't expect to be on the stage in the light, but yet our quiet place is non-existent. So it's just with any training, you look at Olympians, you look at highly successful people, it is a habit that has taken them to where they are. It is not just, oh, you dream it, you do it. I had this thought and now here I am, right? I just spoke it into existence. No, it takes work. It takes habits. It takes, giving God the space in your day to day to know him, to see him, to feel him. And so whenever you walk into that storm that, comes out of nowhere down the road, because you've built this relationship with him through the habit of meeting with him every day, now you know the certainty of his promise. Now you don't have to flail and freak out and do anything crazy because you know him. You've built this relationship with him through the habit of meeting with him. So now when you face that storm, you know that he's got you. You're certain in him. Now, whenever you attain that success or reach that blessing or overcome something you never thought you could, now you can point to Jesus. Now you can point to God like instantly because you know him. You know it was him. There's no, oh, it was by luck or by chance. What a coincidence. No, you know him. You know it was him. And so that is the result that comes from building successful, healthy habits in our life is we get to see that result of knowing the certainty of, yes, like it is God. This is God. He's got me. Our faith is built through the habit of meeting with Jesus. It's strengthened through the habit of meeting with Jesus. And we also have to remember, back to the relationship piece, that every single horizontal relationship that we have here on earth is a reflection of our vertical relationship with God. And so if you are only going to God when you need something, I can almost promise you your other relationships are just like that here on earth, because it's a reflection. He defines relationship. He created relationship. He should be our number one relationship. So if our number one relationship is only when we need him, or only when we want him, or only whenever we see a blessing in our life, we're like, oh, thanks God, is that will be the reflection of our relationships here. And so take maybe a minute to really think about that, because that's deep, and it should be kind of convicting, because it's convicting to me in some ways as well. But it should also be comforting at the same time to know that we don't have to learn how to be in a relationship all on our own. Like he will teach us how to be in a relationship. We just have to go to him. We just have to carve out that space for him every day. Say, God, speak to me. What do you got to say to me? What do you want to talk about? How are you today? What can I know about you today? Right? And it should be a mutual dialogue. It really should be, because that's how it is here. Could you imagine me just talking at Laurie all the time saying, all right, so here's what I want, Laurie. So I really would appreciate if you just bless this area of my life and just start going, right? I give her a list. Like, what kind of friendship is that? So what kind of relationship is that? We have to consider that with God, the God of the universe, the one that created us and created us for relationship with him, because he has more for us. And we got to look at it from this perspective too. The depth of your relationship is curated from that. So pretty much if I'm only saying all these things that I want from Laurie, what kind of depth do we have in our relationship? Like, is it actually going to be a good relationship? Are we actually going to be pulling things from each other and learning and growing and developing and being like, wow, I really value this relationship? So if we're only asking God for things, do we really value that relationship? But whenever we're having this mutual dialogue, and like we're learning, we're growing from God, he's blowing our minds, he's pouring wisdom and revelation over us, we're just learning more about him, we're being blessed, we're overcoming things we never thought we could, we're going to value that relationship. So it really does really have to do with the depth of the relationship, how we treat it. So hopefully that made sense. I was like thinking it through as I'm speaking it. I'm like, oh God, you're giving me a revelation right now.
No, and I was thinking the same thing, because it is a habit. Being able to hear his voice is a habit that we should be like tuning ourselves into his voice. And we can't do that. We can't just call out to him and expect, oh, I'm going to hear from him right now because I want you to talk to me right now. It's also about, how willing are you to stop what you're doing to hear what he's saying?
Yeah.
So I've spent so many years, like I'll be in a conversation with someone. Even Taylor did that to me this morning. She's the same. Since she said something, all of a sudden looks up like, oh, yeah, direct conversation right there with God for a moment. And then she'll say, okay, he just said this. You can do that. People look at me and they think that's weird, or they think, oh, that's cool. I want that. Well, you can have that. But it took years of me talking with God, allowing him to convict me, allowing him to tell me the things, me actually sitting down and purposefully going, God, what do I need to do? What can I do for you today? Or what do I need to know today? What's about to happen today that I should be forewarned about? What do I want? But I'm also seeing, like, lately, this last year, it's been a lot of, I'll sit down to eat. I'm really good at, like, that's a habit. I'll sit down with my food and turn on TV. Even if I'm just going to watch it for just the amount of time that I'm eating, just mindlessly watching something. he's been coming to me and saying, keep that off. I want to talk with you. And I
Mm.
remember this conversation. I think I told you about this, Taylor, but I was sitting there, but then because I'm always immediately wanting to write down what he says to me. But I'm like, but I'm eating, God. I want to write your words down. He's like, how annoying would it be if every time Taylor came over to your house, or yeah, and you had to sit down and be like, she sat down. Wait, let me get my book. I got to hear what you're saying. I'll write down everything you're saying. And I was like, oh, that's annoying. That's not fun. So he's, as our relationship has progressed enough now that he knows that he can come to me and say, Laurie, turn the TV off. I want to have dinner with you. And I'll turn the TV off. But that's the thing. There's times where I'm like, but I have. But God, I just want to relax but I'll turn it off. He knows I'll be obedient. So that's what's different. That's what starts to switch. All of a sudden, he'll start coming and saying, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. And plus, the first time he did that, I was like, but I really want it. Because, like, how would you feel if when next time you come and say, hey, God, I need you right now? I'm like, I'm going to watch TV. I'm like, well, I don't like that. So, yeah, and again, it's our habits and our priorities. Like, where do we put him on our list of things? We have this big old list for the day. Is he even on it? Because most times, probably not. We're not even considering that he can go to work with you or that he could find the love of your life for you. Because guess who made him or her? He did. Who else could get you there? But again, and I like that you said that, the vertical relationship, that's primary.
Mm-hmm.
How often is God like not even secondary or third or fourth in your life? He's primary because he's the only way to truly know yourself and to know where you're going because it's his will that you're living in. Which again, if you go back to just that thought, it's his will you're living in, but are you doing anything at all for him? Are you actually doing his will? When you get up and don't even listen to him, he's like not even the first person you think of in the morning. He is like he is your only primary relationship until he calls you to marriage covenant.
Yeah.
And then your spouse becomes primary under God though. It's a nice little, that's a whole other subject. But every other relationship is a secondary relationship. But where is God? So I can tell you, like, for the first half of my life, he was like not even like 10th, 11th, 12th. I don't even know. He was like non-existent, but yet I cried out to him in anger all of the time. Where are you? It's like, well, where are you? Because I've been here this whole time. And you're just not listening. You're refusing to put me first.
Yeah. Something that can be helpful too with our habits, if you're really trying to figure out to where to put him, right? In the morning. Like how do I make sure that I'm consistent? Because that's probably the biggest pitfall with building a habit is inconsistency. As soon as you're inconsistent, you stop the habit and the habit's actually never built. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then you do it for a few days and then, it's not ingrained in that certain spot. So then you're like, oh, I'll do it later. And then you don't do it later. And then the next day you wake up late and, so on and so forth. So if you can try this technique that is super helpful, it has been for me anyway, and I've read it in this book called Atomic Habits. I highly recommend reading it. And it's called habit stacking. So something that you already have to do. So for instance, for me, something I already have to do every morning is wake up at 5 a.m. to go make my husband's lunch before he goes to work. I do it every morning. I get up at 5 a.m. What that poor habit that I had chosen to build prior to this new habit is go back to sleep for a few hours after I make his lunch and then get up and start my day. But I noticed that I wasn't really creating the time and the space for God that I needed to because I had other things I had to do by that time. So I'm like, all right, I already have to get up at 5. I already got to make the lunch. So in my head, as soon as I make the lunch, I turn the lamp on in the room and I pull out my Bible and I pray. I pray, I read my Bible, then I read a chapter of another book. And so already at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, I have created a habit that is making room for God, spending time with God and reading and pouring into, my spirit, my soul. And then I get a reward of let me go back to sleep for 45 minutes before I get back up and work out or whatever. So now that's ingrained because I kind of get the best of both worlds, right? What I want to do, my reward is I want to go lay back down for a little bit. I want to see the sunlight come into the room and wake up to that, not be in the dark and be like, all right, like, let me try to get going here. So I have it stacked. I had to get up anyway. So stay up for that hour, spend time with Jesus, read, take a little nap for 45 minutes, then get up and start the rest of my day. So if you can find a way to habit stack something you're already doing in the morning, and then just stack the habit of spending time with Jesus right after that. You're already getting up, or you're already, getting in the shower. So what do you do when you're in the shower? Were you talking to yourself? Are you listening to music? Well, while you're in the shower, you could stack the habit of, let me talk to Jesus, right? I'm just in here. Like, I mean, he knows that he made me, right? He can talk to me while I'm naked in the shower. So, just think about that we have so much time in our day that we waste because we think that we have it just categorized like, oh, well, I got to shower and then I got to brush my hair and then got to brush my teeth and get dressed and get out the door. But we fail to see that there's so much space in there to just be talking to Jesus. Like, to be playing worship music, to be singing to him, to be, God, pour your wisdom over me, pour your revelation over me, and just listen to him while you're brushing your hair. I mean, we have so much time that we really could spend with him. It's a matter of making it a habit to posture your heart to receive him, to be in a relationship with him, to connect with him throughout every piece of your lifestyle. So that's really what alignment is all about in a nutshell. Is he is the core of your life, of your lifestyle, and everything circles around him, and he can be in every single piece of it. It's not separate from Jesus. Showering or working out or, talking to your husband or spending time with your kids, that's not separate from your faith. It's actually all flows out of your core relationship with Jesus. So I think that's a super helpful tool. And I know that it takes 21 days to build a habit and it takes 90 days to create a lifestyle. So if you can be consistent with just opening yourself up with that habit stacking technique, it really takes 1 or 2 minutes. It's not like this big drawn out thing like our brains try to convince us that it is. It's not a drawn out thing to just talk to God. It's really not. So, and over time, you'll notice that your capacity expands for more and more and more of him. You can receive more of him. You have room for more of him. You start to create more time for him. You're like, oh, I actually have the time and the capacity to receive more of him. I'm actually hearing him a little bit more clearly now. So I want to sit with him for a little bit longer. And you'll notice that your faith starts to mature over time just because of that concept.
Yeah, and if you're like me, I didn't have a habit in the morning. I had a habit of not wanting to get up. So I just had to choose because sometimes it just boils down to what are you choosing?
Yep.
So I choose, even though I don't want to get up in the morning, I keep getting up a little bit earlier so that I can grab my Bible first thing in the morning. Even I can't even open I can barely get my eyes open, but I got my Bible. um, and not only that, but be expecting a lesson because every day you're learning something. You're being prepared for something in every moment. So even on the mornings where like I don't hear him, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not going to hear from you today. And he's like, really? You didn't hear me? You just read my word, but you didn't hear me today?
Oh,
Yeah, that was that was a couple weeks ago. I did a live on it because like he's like, didn't you? How can you read the Bible and not hear him? Because it's him. It is literally him.
right.
So that was that lesson for me today was just like a reminder of even when I feel like I don't hear him, do I actually stop? I say what I want. And that actually was I went live and I called it refuse the silence. Because there's moments where he's like, how long are you willing to sit here to wait for me to say something to you? Are you just going to give me a passing glance? I didn't talk to you in the first 5 seconds, so therefore I'm out. How much time? So that actually was the morning where I'm like, well, I guess I'm not here. So I just started telling him what, these are the things I would like. I started journaling to him. And then all of a sudden there he was. Because he's like, okay, she's still willing to sit here and wait on me. So how often does he wait on us? All the time.
True.
And yet we like demand him right now. But when he's not right there for us, we're like, oh, where are you?
I don't have time, right? I think
Yeah.
we're so conditioned to the instant gratification of this world. And I think sometimes he will purposely wait to reprogram us out of the world. He's like, I am outside of time, right? Like I can meet you literally anywhere. And the fact that you expect right when you come to me that you just start like having all this revelation and wisdom and just my spirit's poured over you and this and that as soon as you want it, as soon as you desire it, like, and that's because we're conditioned to that belief through the world that, you send a text and you get that instant gratification of a quick response back from someone, or you click on Instagram and there's instant gratification of getting to scroll and just see all these new posts or likes or whatever it may be. There's everywhere around us we've developed this instant gratification, like reward now, now, now. I want the reward, I want the reward, without the habit, the good habit. And so we've developed these poor habits. And so we have to break those and pretty much rebuild these new habits into our routine that are going to honor our eternal life. We have to start having an eternal picture in mind for our life. It is not just this life here on earth. It is not just the 80, 90, 100 years that we live here on earth. It's not just this year, right? So many of us are just tunnel visioned on the year of 2023 or the year of 2024. We're so tunnel visioned on 1 year or 1 month or even one day for some people. Like it's only about the day, living day to day to day. Why don't we start to take on the eyes of God and see our life for what it is eternally? I know that can seem like a really big thing to do, right? And I know that's why, again, back to that instant gratification, it's something that we can see. It's tangible. It's here. It's now. And so if we can take on the eyes of God, he can expand us to really understand the concept of eternal life, and that everything, every habit we're building now is either benefiting his kingdom, benefiting our eternal life, or it's doing the opposite. It's pulling us away. It's distracting us. It's literally is canceling all the good works or whatever it may be. It's canceling it. So we have to really consider the habits that we have in our day. And like we've been saying this whole episode, the primary is just time with Jesus. Because back to that good works comment, yes, we're called to good works, but our faith is first. Like we do good works because we have faith in Jesus. And that's what Jesus did. So we're just following what he does. Good works does not get us eternal life. Good works does not get us into heaven. Don't wake up and be like, oh, what can I do good for God today to get myself rewards? Like that shouldn't be the mindset. He is the reward. Jesus is the treasure, the grand treasure. And so you have him right here at your fingertips right now. You can spend any minute with him any day you want, anytime you want. But there will be a day when you can't. So we have to really sit with that and think about that. If we choose to not be in relationship with him, then we're choosing to not be in relationship with him. We're choosing to not have that opportunity to spend time with him one day. And so that's something that's pretty deep. But
it is.
Yeah.
But I also that instant gratification too, because our lessons are not learned because hey Alexa, what's blah blah blah, and you ask the question and then you get the answer. Our lessons are our experiences. We have to experience the lesson for us to fully comprehend what we're supposed to be learning. And so we can't force our way into learning. We have to go through the lesson. That's why I always teach people that there's no going under, around, climbing over. We have to go through in order to get our healing. And we have to go through in order to find our answers. We have to go through in order for God to change our hearts to be more like him. It's going through. It's the experience that we're living through every single day. But if we're not calling out to him, if we're not taking him with us, and we're not looking at and understanding that we're being prepared through these lessons that we are experiencing, we're missing out on so much. We're missing out on him, really.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. What are we choosing today?
What are we choosing today? Because our choices is what accumulates and becomes our habits. Our habits are what accumulate and become our future. It becomes our character. It becomes who we are. And so we have to really consider that, what we're doing, our spending our time doing. Who are you spending your time with? What are you spending your time listening to, watching? All these things we have to consider and really start to bring Jesus into the picture and align everything we do with who he is. And through that process, we will notice that we're starting to build Christ centered habits in our life and we're feeling more fulfilled because Jesus is truly at the core of all that we do. Our purpose is, in plain sight, and we're starting to live it out because we're like, dang, I'm really in this thing with God. Like we're really partners in this life. And that's what it's all about. That's what this relationship was made for. It wasn't made for just, calling 911 when we need it, when we have an emergency. It was made to be literal partners in this life and have our purpose genuinely fulfilled on this earth into our eternal life in heaven with him. So I hope that you guys learned so much in this episode. I know that we did. And we hope that you hop onto our next one.